Gus was just remarkable. I remember, he was a left-handed guy, and left-handed banjo players are pretty rare.
State Senator Cree Deeds calls Hot Springs, Virginia home, idyllic Bath County, where he reared his son Gus and 3 daughters.
I've got great memories of my children, all 4 of them, on their knees at ponds looking for salamanders and other critters in the water. My children grew up outside, and country kids.
Memories now marred by an awful day when his own son would turn violently against him and then take his own life. The story is a difficult one because Gus showed so much talent and promise on his way to adulthood.
He was started on the varsity soccer team in Bath County High School in 9th grade. He was a trombone player. He taught himself to play harmonica, taught himself to play piano.
In the fall of 2009, Gus took a break from the College of William and Mary and joined his dad as he campaigned to be Virginia's next governor.
Gus, after the campaign didn't work out, Gus decided to take another semester off.
The first signs of trouble began creeping in.
He stayed in Bath County with his mother. His mother and I were separated by that time.
Eventually, they divorced, but kept the communication open when it came to Gus.
His mother texted me one morning and she said, Gus is gone. I just got up and found a note that Gus had gone for a ride. And a few days later, she got email from Gus, or a text or something, of a Welcome to Wyoming road sign.
The odd tangent worried his parents, and by the fall of 2010, they reached out for counseling.
He was diagnosed at that time with a bipolar disorder. So it was after, he was 21 years old before there were ever really any signs that there was a problem.
In 2011, his son's mental illness became painfully apparent.
And one time, we were sitting at the table, in the kitchen table, and he said, Dad, I feel like I'm going to kill myself.
Senator Deeds took his son to the hospital.
He looked at me and said, Dad, this is where I belong. I just have to get my medicine straight. And, I felt so positive about that. It hurt like anything to know your brilliant son, who the Dean's List student from William & Mary, the valedictorian of his high school class, the kid that could play any instrument he wanted to, the kid who wrote songs, who was a composer, was having this mental health issue.
Months later, another hospital stay. The family worked to keep their adult son on the straight and narrow.
And when I'd ask him about medication or seeing a doctor, he'd bluntly tell me, Dad, that's none of your business.
Gus returned to William & Mary in the fall of 2013, but before the end of the semester, he came home.
That weekend, I took Gus out to eat a couple times. He argued with me about things. He was clearly just delusional, but he was still my son, my precious son.
Deeds knew Gus needed immediate help, a 3rd hospital stay. But this time, the state couldn't find a bed, and the young man, so eager to help his father on the campaign trail, turned cold.
Wouldn't communicate with me at all.
Deeds planned to try again the next day and traded a chilling text with Gus's mother. She
said, get out of the house. And I just texted her back. I said, I'm not going to leave my son. But I did latch the door in my bedroom. And first time I've ever done that. And he was trying to get in that night. It was tough.
After a restless night, on the morning of November 19, 2013, Deeds headed to the barn to feed his horses.
I had a feed bucket in my hand. Gus was coming across the yard. He was just marching basically across the yard. And I said, hey, bud, sleep all right? And he said, yeah. Or he said, morning, something like that. And then I turned my back and
Even as Gus stabbed his father repeatedly, Deeds couldn't help thinking of his son's welfare.
And I worried at that time that Gus was going to wind up in jail. But I needed to get away. I got through the barn, I called 911, and I kept working my way toward this road.
Law enforcement swooped in and eventually a medical transport rescued him.
I was in the helicopter, and they talked about, I heard on the radio talking about a second victim.
Oh.
Yeah. So they kept me awake. I got to Charlottesville, and I was, I'll never forget the army of people that met me there.
Gus Deeds ended his own life, and Deeds would survive several stab wounds. Once back at work, the senator found support.
In 2014, with my face scarred and crying nearly all the time, you know, there were a lot of people that saw me and wanted to help. And a lot of those people knew Gus.
Nobody has had experience with this issue like I have.
Because of the situation I've had with my son, I have an opportunity and a responsibility to step up for people that are in trouble.
Deeds went to work for change.
We passed bed of last resort legislation, so if someone is found to be a danger to themselves or others, they're going to be hospitalized. So a situation like that will not exist again.
The General Assembly passed a law to lengthen the evaluation time for a person in crisis from 4 to 8 hours and the hospital hold time from 48 to 72 hours. In Gus's case, another 4 hours might have revealed the state did have a bed for his son that night in 2013.
You know, would Gus still be alive today? Who knows? But he would have been alive if he'd been hospitalized that afternoon, he would have been alive that afternoon, he would have been alive that night, he would have been alive the next day.
To do what his dad says he did best.
Whatever situation Gus was in, he always disappeared into the music. That was a relaxing point for him. And he was such a skilled musician.